Everybody hates Chris. Look, no, this is not about the Oscar slap. Just get that out your mind. But I forgot what channel it's on. But basically, like every weekday, there's like a little mini marathon of shows like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and then around noon, in the morning, and then around noon, that's when Everybody Hates Chris comes on for like 5 or 6 episodes. But an episode came on and I'm like, oh wow, this struck a nerve, because it's honestly my least, if not one of my least favorite episode of the entire series, because we know the whole thing about Chris just taking everybody's crap and dealing with so much every single what is it? I think Fuse is the name of the channel, Fuse. Every single episode he takes somebody's crap, or even when things start to look up by the end, everything falls apart. But I'm talking season 4, episode 19, Everybody Hates Back Talk, aka the one where Chris refuses to wash the dishes and Rochelle kicks him out of the house. And this episode just struck a nerve growing up in a black household. You know, I'm not the oldest, but at the same time, I feel like anybody, well, you know, not just even black parents, but in any household where there's like a toxic relationship between a parent or parents and their child or children, this episode speaks volumes. I mean, at the core, it's just that Chris didn't want to do the dishes due to the fact that he's always the one who's expected to do dishes, despite the fact he has a younger brother and sister who are fully capable of doing helping with the chores as well. And, you know, throughout the series, I mean, you know, he's always watching the kids, and anytime there's anything that goes wrong, he's the one that gets blamed for it. And if I'm not mistaken, the series, how many seasons did Everybody Hates Chris last? Was it 4? I think it was 4, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong though, but regardless, it's a situation where Chris has always been the punching bag. I mean, whether it's at school, at home, around the neighborhood, and he stands up for himself. And that's the worst part about, you know, toxic dynamics, not just relationships, but this happens in families and friendships as well. It's like whenever you stand up for yourself for the first time, they look at you, the person who's usually your abuser, whether mentally, physically, emotionally, they look at you like you're the one in the wrong. And Trishina Arnold, I hope I said it right, is a wonderful actress. She just perfectly embodied the prideful, petty black mother role to a T. But I hated her the most in this episode. But you know, Julius was definitely a standout character, and it just, well, parent, black father. It really showed the importance of having a 2-parent household. That's not to say that there aren't amazing, you know, adults now who were children who lived in 1-parent households, but sometimes, you know, if not in most cases, a parent doesn't, I guess you could say, apologize or make it known that I was in the wrong. It's like, hey, I'm the parent, you're the child, you do what I tell you to do. But you know what? I'm going to be honest here. I don't know if I'm ever going to have kids, but if I do, I pray to God I'm not that kind of parent or the parent I was raised by. It's just one of those situations where you want to make your child not feel like trash, and Rochelle did that at every turn, from, you know, getting to the level of petty where Chris couldn't even fix food in the house. Like, he bought the eggs, he bought the bacon, but you ain't buy this skillet. And it's just the level of petty. And then when he finally says, fine, I'm not going to live here anymore, and then the look on her face said it all. It's just a situation where she knew she could have easily just remedied the situation, but she did not. Even by the end of the episode, when Julius, I don't even want to say talk sense into Chris, but made him understand the ridiculousness of the situation, but at the same time come home to apologize. It's the fact that what happened at the end of the episode, she told him do the dishes, and that was it. It was just one of those situations where it didn't feel like anything was accomplished, and it just made you feel bad for Chris even more. I mean, it's bad enough he dealt with crap at school, being one of, if not the only, black, you know, kids there. But to come home and get treated like, dirt was ridiculous. Here was the only thing I felt could have been done. Well, technically, in my mind, here's the main thing I feel could have been done in order to remedy this episode. But it just wouldn't work. I wish that by the end of the episode, after Julius talked to Chris, there could have been a great Rochelle moment where she reveals why Chris is always put in charge, why Chris is always cleaning and doing the chores. Because with him being the oldest, but I think it was said in the show at some point, like, by the time you graduate high school, by the time you're 17, 18, you're out of here. You're on your own. I think would have been a great way of having Chris understand, since you're the oldest and you'll be the first one out of the house, we want to make sure you know how to clean. You know how to wash dishes, because when you're out in the real world, nobody's going to do that for you. So as a result, learning how to do these things is essential. So when you get your first apartment, if you go to college, you'll know what you're doing. But that was never said. It was just, I told you to do something, so you do it. And the fact that Chris made a great point, that's the thing. Most parents, because I said so, that's not an answer. That's not good enough. It's just one of those situations where this episode pissed me off, but it's just so relatable and so realistic. That's what makes this episode so frustrating. It really is. And the fact that Rochelle had to be talked down by her husband and her other kids to realize I was in the wrong, but at the same time, she never really apologized or had a good talk with Chris, is what made me more angry than anything else. And I was reading the comments. There are like different clips from the episode on YouTube, and I was scrolling through the comment section, and somebody said something very interesting to me. It's the fact that, you know what? I think this episode was really deep because you can kind of tell how pissed off Chris was about the situation. Because out of all the episodes where he does the commentary / narration, Chris Rock had just so many, I don't know, there was just like a vibe from the way he was doing the commentary that made it feel like it was really a, vulnerable spot for him. So this episode probably did something to him when he did the narration and whatnot. And it's really true, because more often than not, parents just bark orders and expect you to listen, as opposed to them hearing you out. I mean, I don't think there was ever a situation where Rochelle, not even say back down, but just listen to Chris. Every time Chris said something, she took it as a form of disrespect. Trust me, same shit happened with my dad last year, but that's another story. But it's just one of those situations where when your child gets to the point where they recognize the dysfunction of the family structure, all of a sudden it's like my way or the highway. But it's like, no, your child has gotten to the point where they realize, okay, something isn't right about this. Tanya and Drew, if, Chris is doing the dishes, why don't one of them take out the trash? Why don't one of them do this? They're always watching TV and Chris is doing the dishes. Like I said earlier in the video, I feel like one of the most, hey, I know it's tough love, but when you're the oldest, after you leave, that's when, Tanya and Drew will start doing stuff, which I feel is ridiculous, because I feel like at any age you should, be able to at least do some chores around the house. It just seems completely unfair. But like I said, Julius was definitely the MVP of the episode in that he talked Rochelle down. I think the analogy he used was like, the boy stuck his finger in the fan and you cut off his whole arm. Essentially, do you not understand the concept of going too far? And I like that, his siblings vouch for him. But Tasha Page Heard is the neighbor who he had a crush on. But I think Tanya was the younger sister. I think Rochelle and Tanya were cut from the same cloth, because somebody on YouTube, like, they're both ghetto snobs. And it's like they're always giving Chris trash. And look, I don't want to crap on Rochelle because of this one episode. Throughout the series, she's had moments like this, but this was Rochelle at her worst. Like, I'm not saying she isn't a loving mother. I'm not saying she isn't over the top, but there are a lot of times where it's like, you can tell that for as cheap as Julius is, Rochelle does wants what's best for her kids. And I really think that at the core, one of the major lessons that she tries to instill in her kids, especially Chris, is that anything worth having isn't always easy to obtain. You got to work for, things and stuff like that. Even though she always bragging about how her husband has 2 jobs, but I know there was a point she didn't have a job, but I do know, didn't she work at a salon for a time? So I really don't know how long that lasted, but like her saying the skillet and everything, you didn't pay for that. Chris should have been like, well, my dad works 2 jobs and you don't work any, so technically you didn't pay for anything up in here either. But no, I mean, it's not that he had to fight disrespect for disrespect. It's just that I wish that in this episode, as well as, in real life, and there are parents who actually do consider their children's feelings and whatnot, but I get it. You're not your child's best friend. You're the parent. You instill rules and values and whatnot you instill morals and values, teach a lesson, and enforce rules because, that's a vital part of the development. But at the same time, I feel like I deal with this myself. I'm a person where, like, if I get yelled at, I kind of shut down because, I'm used to, growing up, like, if, an adult raises their voice, you can't talk back. And sometimes I forget, hell, I'm 30 years old. It is real because it feels like, you verbally and emotionally get beat down so much that you've lost your voice, in a sense. Not physically lost your voice, but you know what I mean? Where it's like you mentally go back to the mindset of being a child scolded, and even when you try to express how you feel, it's seen as a form of disrespect and you get like reprimanded for it. So I feel like, yeah, this episode, while it is one of my least favorite, it is definitely one of the most effective in terms of being a realistic look into how some households work. But thankfully, Julius was there to help clear the air. But keep in mind that there are households where there isn't a Julius. And I don't mean because a dad isn't in the household, but I mean there could be 2 parents in the same household that both are like Rochelle. And then when the parents get older, they wonder why their children want nothing to do with them. Like, once their child moves away, they never come home. So I just feel like it's ironic because this episode, one of my least favorite, is actually right before the Everybody Hates Tasha, the one where Chris and Tasha get into a relationship, one of my favorite episodes. But then I hated that episode towards the ending because Tasha's final line is, "See ya, wouldn't want to be ya." And it's like, really? After all that, they finally get in a relationship, and then that's how the episode ends. But maybe I'll do a video on that in the future. Let's see how this one goes in regards to views and comments and thoughts. But what did you think of Everybody Hates Back Talk? Like I said, not one of Rochelle's finest episodes, but Trishina brought it. It's like her as Rochelle can be frustrating to watch, but at the same time incredibly entertaining. And there are moments where she's completely over the top, but then there are times where she's over the top, but at the same time it's realistic in terms of how some parents are. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the thumbs up button to show you like the video. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description. Hit subscribe and hit the bell icon and select all. That way you don't miss out whenever I post content on the channel.